I think about passion, sales, and knowledge. And I think if we could bring them all together, now you got something that's amazing. Speaking business was a great revenue source. And then what really shows how great of a revenue source is when the speaking stopped and sales kind of declined. And then all of a sudden speaking comes back, and then all of a sudden sales go up. We've been running a really great campaign on helping support the people in Haiti. So we just did a 105-mile bicycle ride in order to raise over $8,000 for the people in Haiti. So we're always impacting people, not just in their businesses, but also globally.
Welcome to Outsource to Profits. I have a fantastic guest. Michael, do you mind telling the audience who you are, what you do, and how you serve the world?
Sure. Michael Esposito, and I am the founder of Michael Esposito Inc., which is a business predicated on helping founders improve their public speaking. So what I do in order to help serve the world, as you so eloquently put it, is I help founders be able to share their message in the interpersonal settings of the one-to-ones, or in their sales pitch or investors pitches, which is really going to help them raise capital, or on stages and in media or on camera or panels, so to be able to broadcast their messages. I do this in a one-to-one setting, coaching setting. I also have a really great mastermind community where they can come in there and dive into some really great advice and tips from people like yourself, and very similar to your podcast here. And then, of course, workshops where I work with them and their teams on being able to improve their communication skills. And how this all serves the world is it all comes together because there's always an altruistic element to my businesses. And for now, we've been running a really great campaign on helping support the people in Haiti. So we just did a 105-mile bicycle ride in order to raise over $8,000 for the people in Haiti. So we're always impacting people, not just in their businesses, but also globally.
This is fantastic. Now, speaking engagements are near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to tell it through a story. My first agency, Sales for Life. You can go onto YouTube. You can see umpteen speaking engagements I was involved in. I didn't ask to get into the speaking circuit. It kind of fell in my lap. I pioneered a sales methodology called social selling, and I got invited to one conference to speak on stage. I remember I was so scared, so nervous, and this was like an association event. And that led me to then breaking off and speaking in workshops and then keynotes at companies' sales kickoffs and quarterly business reviews. Well, I wake up 8 years later, and I'm on 80 flights a year, 47 countries around the world, and speaking becomes a deep six-figure revenue stream for my agency. And so the power of it, and I'm going to just, and this kind of lead into my first question, the power that I saw is now reflecting after the fact. So COVID happens and the speaking engagements go to zero. There's this beautiful tailwind of leads that, think of the hundreds or thousands of people that were in the audience that were up and coming account executives that become regional vice presidents of sales, or one chief revenue officer moves to the next customer when they saw me on stage. And for the next year or two, I had this beautiful wave of lead flow because job changes. But then because of COVID and the speaking engagements ended, so did the lead flow. And I didn't realize how interconnected they were until reflecting backwards. So as you're coaching your customers, which are probably fellow founders, they could be executives, there are many reasons to get into the speaking circuit. Can you define how you probably break it down for people? It's kind of like book writing. You either write it to become Stephen King, or you write it to be, a $20 leave behind in a business meeting that can't be thrown out. So it's like a business card. But long and the short, how do you break down the cohorts of why somebody should get into the speaking circuit?
I love that question. I'm just making a few notes for us here, just kind of like breaking down some of the things that you asked there. One of the first things I want to say is that is freaking awesome that the speaking business came to you. There are so many speakers out there that I meet with that have this message that they want to share and this passion that they want to share, and they just can't get stages. Yeah. And so the first thing I would break it down into, to your question there, is passion. And I think it passion is the overarching to everything. Is that if you're not passionate about something, it's going to it's going to translate. Like people are going to recognize that, this is all BS, and we're not a big, we're not really on this, right? Um, so passion is the number one bucket that I would go to. Is number one, if you want to get on a speaking circuit, or if the speaking circuit is calling you, you have to be passionate about wanting to share your message and broadcast your message. The next one I would break it into is sales. So you just spoke about that, right? Like, so the speaking business was a great revenue source. And then what really shows how great of a revenue source is when the speaking stopped and sales kind of
Yeah.
declined. And then all of a sudden speaking comes back, and then all of a sudden sales go
The
up.
referral machine was worth 10x. Was the speaking, like my speaking fees was 20,000 North America, 25,000 Europe and Latin America, and 30,000 globally. The revenue from the speaking itself and the opportunity cost of time out of market paled in comparison to the tailwind of the lead flow from the corporate customer. Yeah.
So that would be the other main reason, is that you're getting on stage to sell, right? So, and then we're going to come back to the sale one, because I want to go to this next one and they kind of go together, which is then the last one, which is kind of the altruistic one, where we're talking about impact to the world and globally, is to share knowledge. We think about TED conferences. For what reason? To spread the good word, to spread good things, right? Like to create a great idea. And so I think about passion, sales, and knowledge. And I think if we could bring them all together, now you got something that's amazing. But when speaking with anybody that's looking into, is speaking right for me? Is getting on stage right for me? Or how's it going to affect my business? The first thing I think it's going to show the people in your community and the people that you serve is that you're passionate about what you do. You know what you do, you believe in what you do, and you believe in it so much that you're willing to stand on a stage, you're willing to get on a microphone, you're willing to get on a podcast and share that message. The second thing it's going to do for your business is that you're going to be able to speak to audiences. You're going to be able to speak to people and share stories to people on a larger scale. So when you think about your in-person meetings or your boardroom meetings, now you're speaking to hundreds, thousands of people about your product, about your offering, about your business, which obviously is going to sell more product or generate more referrals than if you were just doing it in the one-to-one setting. So now you're broadcasting on a larger scale. And then when we look at the knowledge one, this is where the beauty in all of it is that now you go from this passionate salesperson, this passionate entrepreneur, to this person who can really transfer their mindset and their thoughts and their stories into audiences to sell more product. And then we go into knowledge, to where it's like, you're actually a thought leader. You're actually someone who is above and beyond the rest, and now is someone that people regard. When you're spreading knowledge and you're not even selling from it, but by the way, you still are, but you're not even selling from it, now you're regarded as like, oh my goodness, whatever this person says, I'm going to do. And now you are a thought leader and you're inspiring others. And now it's almost like, I forget some of the people, Dale Carnegie, Brian Tracy, who'll say is that like when you inspire like 1 million people to do something, you're going to get that back tenfold.
I
So
agree. Yeah.
so if you're considering speaking, to me, it's get the right training, right? Which is what my company offers. That's what I do at Michael Esposito Inc. is I train people on public speaking. I train founders on being able to execute their vision through public speaking. So get the right training, because here's the pitfall in public speaking. So this is all wonderful, right? Get on stages, get on microphone, get on camera, do all this stuff. This is all wonderful. However, what matters is how you deliver that message. And if you sound pitchy, if you sound like a salesperson, just like, you got to buy my product, you got to buy, people are going to turn you off. If you are reading a script and you just sound like, look, I'm nervous to get on camera, so I'm just going to read the script, people are not going to connect with you. And if you have filler words and lose your place and are nervous, people are not going to feel the passion or see the confidence in your vision. They're not going to trust you. So you have a few hurdles to overcome before you even get on these stages, and you need to work through those things. And to be honest, I'm speaking to you here as a founder, and I know our audience here that's listening are founders and are entrepreneurs. You've overcome a tremendous amount of stuff already. So you just have to kind of like just take that next step into honing your public speaking skills so that you can share that message on these stages and reap the benefits from it.
Yeah, I can't stress the importance of coaching through a personal story. So, in and around the time when I first was being introduced to speak, I jumped the shark, so to speak, and I went straight to my first ever was a keynote. I was not prepared for it, but it was very clear I was not prepared. And I got relegated for a while into the workshop zone, and I'll explain. At the corporate level, when you get invited to corporate events, there's keynote, main stage, and then there's workshops. Here's what happened to me. And speaking of coaching, so in and around that time, my sister was getting married, and I was asked to be the whatever you call the keynote. I can't remember the name at a wedding, like the MC, the keynote.
The MC, yeah.
MC. I bomb. Like I truly bomb. And maybe I was hard on myself, but even like my own friends were like, you weren't very good at it. So long and the short is I signed up because I knew that I was going to be the MC for my brother's wedding, and then I was going to be one for a buddy's wedding coming up. So I actually did, I think it's called Toastmasters. I did a Toastmasters podium. So I focused in on podium. So when you do Toastmasters, you can learn speaking engagements in various different ways, but I wanted to focus on podium. When I got into the sessions, like you looked around your classroom and you would watch people walk in, and they were not executives. I couldn't believe who was in the room. I thought, oh my God, like there's just, I'm not going to learn anything here. And then, a lady who appeared meek as an HR, coordinator would walk in, sit at the chair, wouldn't say anything. And then she would get up on stage, but she's in year like 2 of podium mastery. And she blew the doors off when she spoke because she had been trained to do so. So I did a year of podium control. I learned how to, there's the physical act of controlling the stage itself, like speak, like, using the T zone of the stage, and then hands and inflections. And I learned all this kind of stuff. Well, then I got to jump from workshops, which was a portion of the people that would be in a room, to the actual main stage, which, your audience broadened dramatically, especially the executives of companies who were in the main stage rooms. So with that, can you be tactical for a moment? If you were to give some best practices, tips, tricks, tactics, above and beyond the let's get started, if you're speaking to a founder, what are the first couple things that people could walk away with and go, oh yeah, like that was really juicy insights?
Awesome. First of all, I am a Toastmaster myself, and know exactly the world that you're speaking about. So here's a really juicy one, a really simple one that is overlooked, and it's the power of the pause. We've used it so far in speaking with each other. As a listener, you're hearing pauses. Sometimes they're edited out because of time frames, but a pause is powerful. So I'm going to just leave you with this because this is going to level you up so tremendously once you understand and learn this, that the other stuff is going to come into play, but we'd have to spend more time together to get the other stuff. But this is really simple. So pausing, what does it do? The first thing pausing does that I love is that it allows your audience to kind of take in what you just said, right? Is it resonating? So often we're speaking, and we're like, I don't know if any of this is landing. Of course you don't, because you haven't stopped, right? So you got to stop. I always look at it as stop signs, right? Like, are you rolling through the stop sign, or are you stopping and looking both ways? So as a founder, as a speaker, when you're speaking to somebody one-to-one, it's just as important as when you're speaking to 10 people, as when you're speaking to 100 people. It's all the same, to be honest, because you're stopping to look and see, is what I'm saying resonating with them? Are they asking questions with their eyes? Whoa, what's that mean? That's body language, right? So are they looking at you and you could tell that there's curiosity in their face, or that there's maybe disgust in their face, right? Like we can look at these two contrasting things, right? Of like, what's a super curious person look like? They might have a small smile, their eyes are slightly closed, they're leaning into their chair, or they just are checked out. They're sitting back in their chair, their eyes look droopy and sleepy, their arms are crossed over their belly, right? So when you're pausing, you could see that, and now you could adjust. You might see a sleeping audience and ask a question to liven them up. Or you might see a curious audience. And now you could just like give them a big smile and be like, let's go. Let's go to the next topic. But it takes the pause to recognize that. Now, the next thing that I just did is that pause adds inflection. It shows that what you just said has purpose and meaning. So when you say something and you pause after, again, it's resonating with your audience and it's adding that extra bit of oomph to that sentence. All right, so that's the reason why the pause is so important. How do we do it? We do it by being present. We do it by recognizing that we're all in this room together. We're all talking with each other, and it's not just one person communicating. We're both or all communicating. So what does that mean? It means that when you're speaking, whether you're keynoting on a stage and everybody's quiet in the audience, or you're speaking in a one-to-one, there's communication. I brought up body language. There's communication. Listening and body language are part of communication. So when you're present in that moment and you could feel this happening around you and you're present, and you hear the words coming out, now you're not so worried about filling the space. Now you're starting to analyze what's going on. Take it in for that moment. And sometimes just take a breath. Take a breath to be able to recognize, maybe I just need a moment to move on to the next point. Now that's the in the moment part, but there are practices that you can and should do prior to speaking. Meditation is one that I teach all of my clients. Meditation allows you to figure out how to be present, how to allow thoughts to come in, note them, and allow them to leave, which is what's happening when we're trying to get to our next sentence. When we're trying to get to our next sentence, we're like, I don't want to forget what I was going to say. But in the practice of meditation, we recognize that you're not going to forget it. And if you do, then it wasn't that important. And what you're going to say next is going to be just as important as what you were going to say. So the practice of meditation is one of the things that you would do prior. And then breathing techniques. Box breathing is one of the most popular. Breathing techniques of taking deep breaths in through your nose, holding and releasing them. All of these kinds of techniques are going to help you be present in that moment and allow for that space. And lastly, just being comfortable with silence. Practice it with some friends, practice it with some colleagues, start speaking and just go silent. And just look at them and make that awkward moment happen, because that's part of it. That's part of the growth. That awkward moment is the muscle that's building to say, you know what? It's actually not that awkward to be quiet for 3 seconds. It actually goes by pretty quickly, and you're going to be able to get better and better at it as time goes on.
This was fantastic. Michael, how do people get a hold of you if they want to learn more and accelerate their speaking game?
Awesome. I really appreciate that question. Real simple. You can follow me on social media at Michael Esposito Inc. Very simple. And my website is michaelespositoinc.com. Very, very simple. Both ways are the best way to get a hold of me. My email's in there. My phone numbers are in there. DM me. However you choose to get a hold of me, that works for you. I meet people where they are. That's how communication works, by the way. We meet people where they are. So just follow me on all the social channels. That's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, or just go to my website and you'll find all of that there at michaelespositoinc.com.
Fantastic. Great having you on Outsource to Profits.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.